All right. Okay, ayan, very good. Sige. So again, this is your ClinMic, all right? Clinical microscopy, or also known as your urinalysis and body fluids, all right? Or urinalysis and other body fluids. I'm sure atong third year, inyong ang subject is AUBF, di ba? Analysis of urine and body fluids. Actually, AUBF na siya. But in the board exam, ginagamit niya po ng clinical microscopy, all right? So this is the last subject of the first day. Okay? And so, 2 to 4 ni siya. Alright? And sa una sa boards, kay Murag, yes, last subject na. So, hapit na naman ang boards. Yes, yes, first day. But recently daw, no, ang clean mic is getting more challenging. Okay? Medyo nagiging challenging na daw siya. So, ayan, let's prepare for that. So, we'll do our best to prepare for your clean mic. Take note that this is a minor subject, di ba? Remember, ato ang grading system or mga criteria percentage for the subjects sa board exam. This is a minor subject. No? So this is only 10% of your total board exam rating. But take note, bahalag 10%, it can still make or break your passing score or your status actually, kung makapasar ba ka or dili. Because bahalag 10% na siya, dako ra gyapon siyang impact sa imong grade para siya sa histopath, no? Na 10%. So regardless if it's major or minor, again, as I have emphasized, we have to make sure to effort the same. All right? Bahalang major or minor. All right? So dili ta mag-complacent na marungon ta dito na okay, minor ra bitaw ni so dili na ako nitunhan. No, you should still study it. All right? And I think muna siya nakapatap na ako. I think this is my highest score sa board exam ang clean mic. All right? And I'm shocked. Yun sa ko siya. The brain na naanak ko atong 2019 pag-take sa boards, it's very different now sa brain na naanak ko karon. Medyo nalimot ako sa akong mga ipang tunan, no? But sige lang, we'll do our best pa rin to explain everything. Okay? All right. So this is your clinical microscopy, again, urinalysis and other body fluids. So this is the first part of our lecture. All right. Now, for the references, unsa na references akong ginagamit? Of course, for this lecture, ako lang i-highlight ang lecture notes ni Sir Errol, kaning Coderes, no? Sir Errol has the best notes in clean mic, no? As in. So, muna siya akong gi-format akong notes na kung gihatan ninyo, similar sa iyahang notes. So, if you have copy of the notes of Sir Errol ng previous board exam, review season, yes. Do not be shocked na hinatupod ako ang ako ang format. The same ako siyang i-follow, no? Kay nice kay pagkabahig iyang notes, all right? And it's quite complete. Sa board exam, mura akong itunan, okay? And ako siyang ibalik-balik. And then of course, supplementary mga books, and then muna to siya akong itunan. Because again, the notes of Sir Errol kay complete na yun as in the best, no? So if ever mag-pioneer mo, review center, si Sir Errol ang one of the best lecturers here sa Pioneer. No? So don't worry, towards the end siguro, before we end the sem, or mga middle of December, basta towards the end of the semester, ato ang mag-allocate ta og day or 2 days for your board exam questions. No? Or like mga queries on board exam related concerns, no, such as sa review, pila ka days, sinana, or pila ka months, sinana. So ato nang i-answer yung mga questions, all right? Then also I will also share my board exam journey. Charot kayo. But anyway, ayan, sige, we'll do that, mga board exam related concerns, questions towards the end of the semester. All right? Mga December na siguro. Okay? So ako i-chika sa mga pros and cons sa duha ka review center. Unsa po yung pros and cons if double yung mga review center, no copy siya. But anyway, sige, ato na i-chika. Alright, but again, Sir Errol Coderes, the best in clean mic, grabe, no? As it's a pioneer. For the books, of course, you have Strassenger. Yes, that is the main reference for your CM, NATO, and even for the board exam. A lot of questions come from Strassenger. So akong challenge nyo, dears, and my requirement na lang yun, no? For the Compre exam this December 10, if I'm not mistaken, December 10 akong naibalan. For Compre, CM, please read your Strassenger from cover to cover. All right, cover to cover, no, from the start until the index, until the glossary. From cover to cover, appeal ang appendix, katong automation. Please read that or mura study. Okay? As in, mura good study. Yapin na lang po akong notes para dili mawala akong kahagot. But please, no, study. Use your Strassinger, please, dears. Okay? So, for exam, kani si Strassinger magud na book is one of the books sa medtech na medyo easy lang to read and mas carry lang siya to finish. Because medyo gamay rin yung pages, dili pa kay siya technical, no? Like dili kay siya pinanakalisod sa Abdul. It's user friendly, no? So ayan. So again, sa board exam, mga twice or thrice na ko siya studyhan cover to cover ang imuhang Strassinger. So ina na siya ka carry lang na study. So you still have a lot of time before your compre. Again, please, forget ako requirement. Okay? You study your Strassinger. And if mahumanin niyo siya, I think carry na ang compre. Alright? So again, muna ako challenge siya para at least pagabot sa board exam, review seats on carry na. Like, okay, nakumanan ako ng Strassinger before, I can do it also now. Alright? Because again, repetition is key. Repetition talaga is the key to success. Okay. Now, other books, of course, is your Brunzel and your graphs. Sa recent board exam, based sa ako mga nachika, nagana po ng questions na mukuha. Na yung mga questions na daw coming from graph and Brunzel. Alright, so that's why na ako mga notes or mga information na ikuha ko from them. Alright? And of course, ang Henry's. No? Ang Henry's na to, in terms of urinalysis and other body fluids, it's only 2 chapters, if I'm not mistaken. 2 chapters are siya. No? So, if you still have time, you can also read there. But again, in Henry's, the downside lang dito of Henry's is that it's too technical. Alright? They have information na murag, do I really need this? Or like, inanagani. So, medyo PMI siya. Alright? But again, Strassinger gears, as I mentioned, yeah, very easy to read. As it's very user friendly. So I think you can finish it. I really think you can finish it before the conference. All right. So muna ko requirement ha. You study Strassinger from cover to cover. All right. Before your conference. Kaya yun na. Okay. All right. So that's for your references. So again, kanya ko mga notes na gihatag ninyo gears. Compilation ninyo siya, no? From my review notes, from these books and other mga resources. All right. Okay, sige. So we'll start. Ayan. So of course, the very first, gasgas na, since first year is of course the safety in the clinical laboratory. So ako siyang i-mention here because na po yung mga questions, no, na mugawas on lab safety sa ClinMic. Actually, lab safety is in all subjects, no. Pero dili na ako siya i-discuss. Alright? Because again, this is a review na. I'm sure you're all familiar with this. Wait lang. Again, this is a review lang of what you already know since first year. Alright? So, ato na siyang i-emphasize, di na kayo mo dwell on the specifics because I'm sure you already know this. Alright? Okay, sige. So, we'll start first with the safety in the clinical lab. Again, safety procedure manuals. They are described, safety policies, again, mandated by CDC and OSHA. So again, meaning sa CDC, you have Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, and OSHA, Occupational Safety and Health Administration. So these are mga federal agencies in the US. In the Philippines, we don't have CDC, but I think we have OSHA here. Okay, so ayan, these are mga agencies that mandate, no, or those that are giving mga kung sa mga important na mga policies when regards or with regard to safety. All right. So again, they update and review annually by the laboratory director. Sorry. Ang safety procedure manual, of course, every laboratory must have this. This is updated and reviewed annually by the laboratory director, so chief medtech. Okay, so siya yung magsigig lantaw ana. Once you're the chief medtech manggod, you're more on paperwork na. Okay. Wala na kayo ka nag-dwell sa mga sample processing, no? Ang chief medtech, if ma-chief medtech na ka, you're more on paperworks, no, more on laboratory management na good, no? So mas, I don't like that job. Charot, feeler, chief medtech na part. Joke lang. Baka in the future. Charot, manifesting. Chaka lang. All right. Now, the guidelines for writing these policies and procedures, they are provided by CLSI, Clinical Laboratory Standards Institute. All right. Now, safety officer, again, it's responsible for initial orientation and periodic updating of staff, responsible for compliance with existing regulations affecting the laboratory and staff. So it's the laboratory director or a laboratory ang mo designate kung kinsa ning safety officer. But again, these are from Strassinger, so medyo US-based ni siya. So I'm not sure sa Philippines. Napatay safety officer. Parang meron din naman. So, ayan. So, that's generally kung sa'yo dapat i-follow. Alright. Of course, dapat na ay safety procedure manual. Alright, that's important. And of course, safety officer. Alright. Next, we start now with your biological hazards. Of course, the first hazard is your biological hazard. So, by the name itself, biological, these pertain to potentially infectious microorganisms. Alright. So, because again, we already know that from our samples mismo, there could be a ton, there could be a lot of microorganisms that the personnel or the laboratory workers can acquire if they don't practice proper safety procedures in handling these specimens. All right. So again, potentially infectious microorganisms from bacteria to virus. All right. So very important. So these are your biological hazards. And infection control, these are, again, the procedures to control and monitor infections occurring within the healthcare facility. So that's infection control. Of course, every hospital, they have an infection control unit, all right? They have an infection control nurse and infection control mga officers, all right? Okay. And of course, chain of infection. Oh, this. Actually, discuss one in this. Again, bahala, makaino mo na, sir, I already noticed. No, dili. Ato ni siya gusto na po. Bahala, sige balik-balik ani. Important yun kay para dili ka makalimot sa basics, alright? So fundamentals. Because again, lumalabas siya sa boards. The tendency man good when you take the boards or when you review for the boards, I am already a victim of that. Kung focus na kayo sa mga complex na topics, alright? Kaya ga-anticipate mo na, oh my God, board exam na ni siya. So, these would be questions, mga out of this world. That is true na yung mga out of this world questions. Pero majority pa rin of the questions are mga basics. Alright? The fundamental concepts, yun. So we don't, we need, kailangan yun nato siyang i-emphasize kaya po. Dapat hindi nato kalimtan kung unsay basics, kung asa ka alright? Okay, ayan. Sige. So muna siya rational karon. Ano nag-start tag lab safety. Okay. Anyway, daming chika. Again, chain of infection, this is a link. No, it's a transmission of microorganisms, continuous link. All right, that facilitates infection. All right. Now, according to Strassinger 5th edition, it is a continuous link between the source, which is your infectious agent, the mode of transmission, and susceptible host. In the 6th ed, na siya, again, 6 components. All right. And sa inyong notes na ay mnemonics dira, you have IREMS. All right, IREMS. All right. You have the infectious agent, followed by the reservoir, followed by the portal of exit, followed by the mode of transmission, followed by the portal of entry, and then finally, the susceptible host. So take note of that mnemonics. IREMS. Makaingon mo na, sir, basic na kayo ni already know that. Very good. No? So memorize that. Internalize because lumalabas pa rin sa boards. Alright? IREMS. No? Infectious agent, reservoir, unang exit ha, portal of exit. Next, you have the mode or the means of transmission, followed by the portal of entry, and then lastly, susceptible host. All right. Now, the portal of exit can also be the portal of entry because ang portal of exit usually mga nose, mga mouth. Asa mo gawas, no? Ang pathogen. So therefore, ang portal of entry kung asa po mo sulod sa susceptible host. So still the same. Pwedeng nose, pwedeng mouth, pwedeng mga mucous membranes. So the portal of entry can also be the portal of exit. Take note of that. All right. IREMS. Take note of the okay. IREMS. Infectious agent, the reservoir, the portal of exit. Una mo ng exit. So take note lang na if malimot mo kung unsay unang exit or entry, just take note or just imagine na ikaw ang infectious agent. So magsugod ng infectious agent, ikaw, so naka sa reservoir. When you say reservoir, di ba, this is the area kung asa ka mo multiply, kung asa ka mo daghan. So if ready na ka mo gawas, okay, ready na ka mo infect, uglain, di ba, mo gawas ka. So muna dyan ang exit, okay? And then the mode of transmission, and then finally, entry to the susceptible host, all right? IREMS, all right? Now the reservoir, also dear, take note, can also be the susceptible host, no? Possible siya. Because again, gikan dito ang host, no? Or gikan dito ang pathogen. Ang imong host na imong ng reservoir, all right? So again, mode of transmission, the canting waste, which is the next. No? And again, your portal of entry can also be the portal of exit. Take note of that. Again, sa mnemonics for the chain of infection, irenes. Alright? Basta pakutanan mo na yung mga question. What is the fourth component of the chain of infection? What is the third? What is the second? Alright? So take note of that. Irenes. I-R-E-M-E-S. Again ha, again, take note. Duha na letter E. Okay? Unang exit, before, entry. Okay? Take note of that. Alright. Sige, that's for the chain of infection. So within itself, chain of infection, this is the link kung sige follow or gina-follow sa imong pathogen para maka-cause ng infection. Alright. Now, what are the different modes of transmission? Of course, you have airborne. Alright. For airborne, again, ang airborne is more on aerosols na yun. Dried aerosol particles. When I say droplet, these are mga dagko pa siya na particles. Okay? Usually coming from patients or uncapped specimens. That's from Strasinger 6th edition. So basta ang question gani, gas-gas na question na po, what is the hazard that we get from centrifuging uncapped specimens? Of course, the answer is aerosolization. All right, aerosol production, which we can acquire. All right, aside from centrifugation of uncapped specimens, napadiri, you have heating cultures using Bunsen burner because possible na pag heating mo, ma-aerosolize ang imuhang nasa imuhang loops, no? And aside from that, removing stoppers and leakage from container that holds contaminated specimens. So take note of that. No, that's for the first mode of transmission, airborne. Next, you have ingestion. In the 6th ed, this is also known as your vehicle. So it's using food, water, no, as the mode of transmission. Okay, so here it's usually failure to wash hands, so direct contact, eating, drinking, smoking, applying cosmetics, or pipetting by mouth. Basta it use a vector, mechanical vector, no? So nasa vehicle. Ayan. Next, of course, direct inoculation, diretso sa mata, mucous membranes, no? Needle stick, percutaneous injury, yes. Mucous membrane contact, diretso sa imuhang eyes, mo din siya, sorry. Mucous membrane contact, diretso sa eyes, or sa imong other mucous membranes. And of course, arthropod vectors, of course, mosquitoes, you have ticks and all that. All right, so we mentioned that already. Sige, tagbalik-balik ka na sa para, no? Okay, so take note of that. All right, sige. Next, you have your PPE. Okay, nako PPE. So personal protective equipment. All right. So kaning PPE, of course, medyo mas na-popular na siya karon because of this pandemic. All right. Now, for your Strasinger 6th edition, iyaha PPE now may include your gloves, your fluid-resistant gowns, eye and face shields, and your countertop or plexiglass shields. So when I say countertop, these are shields na nasa imuhang sink. All right, countertop. All right, may picture later. All right. So again, but according to OSHA, dears, take note. Your PPE may also include safety glasses, your shoes, earplugs or muffs, hard hats, respirators or coveralls, your katong hazmat na suit, katong dako, katong ginagamit sa pag-swab and all, vests and full body suits. Now take note, ang definition sa OSHA, this is because it takes into consideration other mga profession, not only in the laboratory, so mga construction workers, no, those that are working in factories, so that's why ilaha PPE apil ang mga earplugs or muffs, apil po ng hard hats, no. But generally, muna siya mga PPE. But in the laboratory setting, of course, ang mga PPE nato are the gloves, no, the gowns, the face shields, the eye goggles, and of course, the masks and your countertop or plexiglass shields. All right. So of course, yes, a face shield dapat nasa laboratory, nasa hospital lang yan. Okay? Alright, ayan, sige. Anyway, so start first with your gloves, no? Your gloves, again, it is recommended that we wear gloves when in contact with a patient. Alright? Now, tama. Alright, tama. And every patient dapat, it is recommended to change gloves in every patient. So if any siya sa ka-patient, ang kung mo touch the patient, like when it's visibly soiled or medyo na-blood it ay mga stains or what you have. But once you are with patient, you gloves every so every alright, muna share ko kaya. Because Philippines, parang hindi yung nangyayari. Especially sa public hospitals, no? Sa akong experience sa Soto, if mag-ward me sa hospital, as in, o sa kung sa akong i-wear na gloves from the laboratory, pero kung gamitin natin, Charot lang. Ito, ginatangtan ako akong gloves as much as possible if mag-transfer ko og one ward to another. Ayan. Para murag dili siya makontaminate kaayo. Yes. As much as possible, bring daghan na gloves jud. Pero of course, medyo kana gining murag time constraint kada pa kay kang kuhaan na patient. So medyo dili na kay ka maka-worry ang mga gloves. Sorry naman, no, pasensya, but don't follow, no. Alright, so recommended pa rin, again, is to wear and to change gloves every patient. Okay? Alright. Now, the gloves, again, do not prevent needle stick injuries. Ayan, do not be complacent. Makating ka na, okay na gloves ko. Hindi na ako ma-prick, no? That's not the case. Exhibit A, ako mismo, no? So, ako na yung chika sa Sharp's Hazard. Later, ako ang needle stick injury. Okay? Ayan, sige. It does not prevent your needle stick injuries. But again, at least naka-protection gamay gyapon. Bisag dili siya ka-prevent, but at least you still have the gloves gamay na protection against these injuries. Next, of course, your gloves are not a substitute for hand washing. Yes, it's recommended that after removing the gloves, no, you wash your hands. Okay. But again, if dili kaya, pwede hand rub. Okay, alcohol-based na mga cleansers. All right. Now, of course, there are some workers, laboratory workers, that have latex allergies. All right. So the latex allergy may be similar to contact dermatitis, so meaning magkulay mo kamot, no? Magkulang kamot sa face as ay muhang laboratory worker na yung mga katul-katul. Another one is delayed hypersensitivity, meaning after pila pa ka days mo gawas ang reaction. And also you have true immediate hypersensitivity. So type 1 hypersensitivity reaction to the point na magliso na ginhawa. So allergic yun, no? So para siya different latex allergies. So of course, if a person or if a worker in the laboratory is determined to have latex allergies, then the gloves that should be used are not made of latex. So say alternative, you have nitrile or vinyl or vinyl. Nitrile or vinyl. Actually, ganun po nitrile na gloves. So mas nice siya. Okay. So muna siya alternatives to latex. Okay. And also, I don't like powdered na katong latex na gloves. Kailangan siya, no? Mas nice ang nitrile gears, no? Nitrile or vinyl. So in your when you rotate sa laboratories, I think ang vinyl, ang nitrile na gloves na non-sterile will suffice. So kahit na mo sa box, no? Meron akong ginabuhat actually, even sa third year. Sa box yun na nitrile na gloves para mas makasave mo kaysa atong siging na sterile kay kalas. Okay? Alright, so that's for the gloves. Okay. Alright. Next, you have, of course, your outer coverings, which are your gowns, laboratory coats, sleeve protectors. Again, it's recommended that we use fluid-resistant, long-sleeved, of course, and dapat na siya wrist cuffs, all right, ng mga laboratory gowns, all right? And this should be kept buttoned at all times. As you can see, nasa likod ang buttons para ma-make sure yun na naka-button yun siya, all right, sa likod. And then your laboratory coats, what we have is cloth, diba? In the laboratory setting, it's recommended, okay na mo gamit yung cloth as long as the cloth is fluid resistant. Okay? But for our laboratory classes, parang hindi naman siya fluid resistant. But sige lang, okay? All right. And take note that the laboratory coat that you use inside the laboratory should not be worn in public areas. So take note of that. So if na may makitaan sa gawas na murag aware of public mga laboratory coats, hindi na siya i-judge. Charot, check lang. Okay. Baka they have a separate gown. No? So okay na po na. There are other institutions or doctors or workers that have double laboratory coats. No? They have a laboratory coat that they wear when in the laboratory na po'y uban na sa gawas na sila other laboratory coat. I don't know nga sila mag-wear laboratory coat maybe for fashion or for cloud chasing. Check. Pero again, it's recommended that what you wear na laboratory gown inside the laboratory should not be worn in public areas. Why? Of course, because that is self-explanatory. You're bringing pathogens or bringing hazards from the laboratory to the public area, and you may involve a lot of other people. Okay? All right. Ayan. And of course, disposable plastic aprons, such as this one, is recommended when you handle specimens that you are that is expected to have splashing. Pwedeng mo tapon, no? Pwedeng mo splash wala akong Bisaya na word, basta mo splash. Okay, ayan. Alright, sige. Okay, mubisik dahil bisik. Ayan, sige. Alright, sige. And of course, you have here, again, muna siya ang imuhang full gown yun, no? This should be fluid resistant. And kanina siya, dears, muna siya ang imuhang coverall. Okay? Hindi siya tawag na coverall. Again, you're all familiar with this, no? Coverall, ginagamit sa mga things swab, diba? Take process of mga specimens. This is also known as your hazmat suit, diba? Ang meaning sa hazmat, dears, karon ko is hazmat. It's a parang an acronym or the merge siya. Ang hazmat meaning anak kay hazardous materials. O, diba? Hazardous materials. So hazmat, no, means hazardous materials. O, diba? Hazmat means hazardous materials. O, diba? Hazmat suit, hazardous materials na suit. So kaning hazmat suit, actually, hindi na siya makitaan sa mga medical setting. You could also see hazmat suits, when handling chemicals in factories, no, because again, these suit is to protect the worker from hazardous materials. All right. So again, this is also known as your coverall, no, coverall. You have hazmat suit or bunny suit, no, B-U-N-N-Y, bunny suit. Okay. So again, very common na to us. Makita na to mga fellow medtechs working in the laboratory, mga nurses po, no, handling patients with COVID. Okay. All right, sige. So that's for your outer coverings, gowns, laboratory coats, and sleep protectors. Okay. Next, these are your, again, other ones. You have the masks, goggles, face shields, and plexiglass countertop shields. All right. So again, the main purpose of these PPE is, again, when there are some splashes or pwede na yung mga pisik na makitabo from your specimen. Okay. So mga aerosol mists, splashes, or sprays. So these are an example of your countertop shields. So you can see pagbutang nimo sa specimen, no, pagyabo sa specimen, possible na IP6 na mahitabo. So it will protect you from the splashes. Okay, so plexiglass countertop shields. All right. Okay. And of course, you have the respirators. The respirators are used especially for airborne diseases. Okay, because again, these are particles or pathogens that can be transmitted sa air. So you have to protect yourself. Respirator, of course, very popular is your N95. All right. So NIOSH approved. Meaning of NIOSH is National Institute for Occupational Safety and Health, NIOSH. So N95, your N95 gears actually in the hospital setting individually fit siya. Meaning every year nagyud siya fit testing every worker, no? So kanang mapalit nato na N95 yun, dili na siya fit tested for every person. Okay? So in a way na siya mga differences. But in the hospital, no, it's recommended good. Kailangan yun siya na fit tested. Every individual gina-measure, no? Kung para yun ang fit sa imuhang N95 kay snug fit. Ayan, snug fit meaning mo fit yun siya sa imuhang mouth, sa imuhang nose para ma-protect yun or masarado, no? Or ma-cover yun siya entirely imuhang nose and mouth. Okay? So muna siya ang say tawag ana snug fit. So there's a question na your N95 should be letter A, blah blah blah. So again, snug fit. Okay, snug fit. Okay, all right, so that's for the respirator. So when I say N95, 95 meaning that's the percent na yung filter, 95%. Okay, all right, so that's for the respirators. Ganun siya na respirator dears na po in for hospitals, but majority are being used for mga handling chemical substances, sa mga factories and all that. But this can also be used in hospitals. Okay, all right, sige. So that's for your PPE. Now there was a question in the board exam, which of the following is not a PPE? Ayan. So later, letter A. Sige, kama ko ipa-answer na. Which of the following is not a PPE? Letter A, you have goggles. Yata. Letter B, you have gloves. Letter C, HEPA filter. HEPA filter, and letter D, you have sanitizer. Alcohol sanitizer. So it's yung answer. Which of the following is not a PPE? So yung answer? Letter D. Yung sa itong letter D, your sige, nani answer letter D daw, which I believe is alcohol sanitizer. Yeah, answer. Okay. How about the answer sa ubay? So ang choices again, letter A, goggles, B, kay gloves, letter C, kay HEPA filter, I think itong libutan, and D, you have alcohol sanitizer. So may PPE. Yes, so naman Jud Ange. Yes, nagduha-duha na. Okay. Sige, B or C daw. So it's either HEPA filter daw or alcohol sanitizer. So sa may atong i-answer ana.
Sanitizer, sir.
Sanitizer. Okay. Sige. Sa answer sa ba? Agree ra mo na sanitizer? Tama ba? Sanitizer nga ba? Alright. Wala na yung answer? Okay. Alright. Sige. Diba? Pero ako si Dora lagi. Ako yung mga ako rin yung tama, no? So the correct answer there would be sanitizer. Yes. Because rational ato is your HEPA filter can be found in your N95. No, your N95 has HEPA filter. So pwede siyang mahimong PPE. But your sanitizer, your alcohol sanitizer, is not necessarily a PPE. So, ano siya answer ato? No? So if negosyo sa akong boards, I'm not sure kung saan yung answer. Shocks, ma-shock po ko. Very, oh my God, what is this question? Pero ganun. Okay? Remember lang that your N95 has HEPA. Okay. All right. Next, for PPE gap 1, your personal protective equipment, the donning and doffing. Now, kanina siya kung i-follow na gears is from your CDC. Take note, again, in the advent of this pandemic, there are some modifications, a lot of modifications in your donning and doffing, especially when you wear mga hazmat suits and all that. There is a different method, mas complex siya. Pero kanina siya general lang, okay? So for donning, putting on, no, si Donnie Pangilinan, charot. Si Donnie, putting on of PPE, all right? So mag-start sa with gown, all right? Gown followed by your mask, and then followed by the goggles or respirator, goggles or face shield, and then finally the glove. So nana siya dance step. Okay, so sayang ko din. So pa-TikTok the nerd. Okay? Ako rin na-share sa ako ang students before. So ano, so marakag mood from the ear, so body, and then mask, and then goggles, and then your gloves. Okay, so paano ka dito? Alright? Marshall, yes. Yes, okay, ganun. So from here, pataas, and then, okay? So you have again the gown, mag-start, followed by the mask, and then the goggles or face shield, and then your gloves. Alright? So that's for donning. So dance step. Okay? Alright, sige. So that's for the dance step. Alright? Take note of that. Donning of PPE. The question again is what is the correct order of donning? What is the correct order of doffing? So you say doffing, that's taking off. No, as you can see, that is already alphabetical lang. So mag-start ka letter G, gloves, no? Gloves, followed by your goggles, followed by the gown, and then last is, of course, mask. Okay, so alphabetical siya, as you can see. Gloves are the first, alphabetical in terms of mga letters niya, di ba? Gloves, followed by goggles, G-O, and then gown, all right? And then last is your mask or respirator. Okay? So this is following CDC gapo. All right? CDC ni siya. Okay? So donning, ayan, that's step ni mo. Start ka sa body, padulong ka sa mouth, and then sa eyes, and then sa mukhang hands, gloves. And then for doffing, di mo siyang alphabetical. Okay? Alphabetical arrange lang siya. Arrange siya alphabetically. So you have gloves ang pinakauna, followed by goggles, G-O-G, and then followed by gown, G-O-W, and then lastly, mask. All right? Or respirator. So that's for the donning doffing. So don't forget the dance step. Okay. Erasure man di ay. Charot. Sa'yo pa. Charot. Check lang. Okay. Next, you have, of course, proper hand hygiene, of course. Because your hand hygiene, especially hand washing, is the best way to break the chain of infection. Of course, gasgas na gasgas na. Sige, balik-balik. My gosh. Again, your hand washing, the best way to break the chain of infection. Because your hand contact is also the primary means of infection transmission. And hand hygiene, actually, when you say hand hygiene, it's both hand washing with water and soap and also using alcohol-based cleansers. Now, take note of this, may mga buzzer dyan, take note of that. When hands are visibly soiled, meaning, medyo kayo makita ng mga lama-lama sa dugo or sa ihi ba or whatever, you have to perform hand washing with water and soap. Pero if it's not visibly soiled or contaminated, you may opt to perform hand rub using alcohol-based cleansers. All right? But take note, hand alcohol-based cleansers is not recommended if you have in contact or naka-contact ka og spore-forming bacteria such as C. difficile and your bacillus species. Okay? All right? Because your alcohol may not kill those spores na possible na contact nito. All right? So it's still best to perform hand washing if naka-contact ka spore-forming bacteria. All right? Take note of that. When hands are visibly soiled, you perform hand washing. But if it's not visibly soiled, you perform alcohol-based hand rub. So mga sanitizers, alcohol na to. Alright. Now take note, basta alcohol ganit years mo, pagsinom sa alcohol, always make sure na i-rub inyo ang kamot until mo dry ang alcohol. Okay, ayaw ana din naman na. Make sure na mo rub jud ka until mo dry ang alcohol sa imong kamot. Alright? Rub good. Okay, friction is important, especially kung mag-alcohol ka. Alright? Okay. But again, generally, dears, if you have the capability, if you have the chance, it's always best to perform hand washing. Water with soap. Alright. Okay. And it's recommended now na gamiton nato kay liquid soap. Alright? Kaysa sa bar soap. Okay. Ayan, liquid soap. Okay. Now, what is the hand washing procedure? Lumalabas pa rin sa boards. Actually, nagawa sa boards, what is the last step of hand washing? The last step there is number 7. Turn off the faucet with a clean paper towel. O, diba? So, lumalabas pa rin sa boards. What is the last step? O, diba? So, take note of that. Again, unsa na water ato gamiton? Warm water. No, warm water. Ayan. And of course, pila ka soap, pila ka ml? 3 to 5 ml. Now, again, rub. And very important parameter, very important component of hand washing is, of course, friction. Ako, kailangan dyan ay friction. Yes, because again, it's through friction na matangtang to mga debris that contains the bacteria, all right, and other pathogens. Now, again, thoroughly clean between fingers for pila ka seconds, at least 20 seconds. At least, ha? Wala nyo at most. At least minimum of 20 seconds. All right? So minimum of 20 seconds. In the old version of Strassenger, 5th edition, 15 seconds ang ibutan. But karon, it's well accepted na yun na at least 20, no? 20 seconds. All right. Now, rinse a downward position. Take note, downward position. All right. Now, dry with a paper towel. And of course, the last step, turn off the faucets with a clean paper towel. Now, take note, diba, downward position. Imagine kung inana ka mag-rinse, no? So, if nakalimot mo, dears, i-ask sa boards, no, what is the position when you rinse your hands? Of course, downward. No? Wala na mag-inana, diba? Weird. Okay, so downward position. And of course, sa tuwang birthday, sa tuwang hand washing song, it's Happy Birthday twice. Okay, so you sing Happy Birthday twice, and that is your hand washing song. Okay? Hand washing song, Happy Birthday twice. Alright. So parang naka-blank na din sa inyo ang notes, dears. So copyright. Happy Birthday twice. Okay. Alright. So that's your hand washing procedure. Again, take note. Again, pila ka seconds. Pila ka seconds. At least 20 seconds. So if you mention sa boards or na yung mga statements, which of the following statements is true? You have hand wash for about 60 seconds. So of course, that is still correct because at least 20. So pwede ka mo more than 20. Basta dili below 20 seconds. Okay? That's the point of at least minimum of 20 seconds. And again, what is the main or important component of hand washing? Friction. Okay? Friction is very important. Kailangan yun maggasgas. Charot. Kailangan yun mag-rub. Okay? Friction. And of course, wash your hands. Pag-rinse, in saan na position? Downward. Right? Ariana Grande. Charot. Positions. Okay. All right. And again, the different steps, I'm sure, my God, first year pa lang, this is your first practical exam. Diba? First practical exam is hand washing. So, alam niyo na yan. Okay? Basta, very important lang, dears. Ayan, don't be confused, diba? As you can see, ibutang dire 40 to 60 seconds. That is still correct. Kaya gi-mention ra at least 20 seconds. Okay? Alright. And for hand rub, as I mentioned, kasi mo alcohol, dears, make sure yun na imo siyang i-rub until mo dry ang imuhang alcohol na gigamit. Okay? Alright. Okay. So that's for your hand hygiene. All right. Next, we go on to the different precautions. Of course, we have mentioned about this. You have the universal precautions, followed by the body substance isolation, and then finally, the standard precautions. So universal precautions, siya ang first yun na na-apply. All right. So this happened during the AIDS pandemic. All right. Para to prevent workers from getting the HIV and from being exposed, no, or acquiring the infection. So the CDC developed these guidelines. But the disadvantage lang is they excluded urine and other body fluids na walay blood na makithan. Okay, so that's very dangerous pa rin because even if walay visibly na makithan na blood sa inyong body fluids, it doesn't mean na wala siya. Okay, so basi na pa'y gamay lang. No? So that's the disadvantage. This is the first precautions na gigamit. No? Universal precautions. But again, The disadvantage lang is if wala nila i-include, no? I-exclude nila ang urine. Body, it's not with or absence of blood. But the disadvantage is hand washing is not recommended after glove removal unless your hands are visibly soiled. So, disadvantages daw nag-siya mga downsides, no? So para ma-answer na yung tanan or ma-encompass, ma-appeal na yung tanan, they made the standard precautions. And this is what we follow now, no? The standard precautions, the synthesis of the major features of universal precaution, UP and PSI, body substance isolation. Now again, under standard precautions, you already know that all body fluids, regardless of the presence of blood or not, and excretions except sweat are potentially infectious and are capable of disease transmission. Your hand washing again is required after every glove removal. All right, so to prevent the spread of infection. So that's the history, no, from universal precautions, body substance isolation, and then finally the standard precautions. Ayan. So here's a table, dears. Medyo gamay na lang na siya, no, but still the same akong gi-mention. So again, I'll post this PowerPoint code. This is from Brunzel. Medyo daghan na tayo siya. So ayaw na kay TMI. Alright? So muna to siya point. Universal precaution, body substance isolation, and then finally standard precautions. Alright. Now, another one is your transmission-based precautions. So these are precautions that we additionally perform if the standard precautions are not sufficient, meaning kulang siya, no? Usually these are performed in patients with known diseases na good, like kanina na patient na siya TB, kanina na patient na influenza, na siya measles, all right? And usually these patients are in isolation ng mga rooms, no, private rooms. So these transmission-based precautions usually are for patients that are isolated. So mga isolation precautions ni siya. And we have three. The main three is your airborne, droplet, and contact. Okay, so for airborne precaution, of course, these are diseases, or we perform airborne precaution for those patients with airborne diseases such as TB, measles, chickenpox, no, herpes zoster, shingles, ready to mingle, mumps, and adenovirus. So for PPE, again, standard precautions is needed, and aside from that, pwede lang masks and or respirator. Because again, it's airborne. The mga particles. You have N meningitis, you have Haemophilus, pertussis, whooping cough, group A strep, influenza, virus, scarlet fever, parvovirus B19, RSV, and diphtheria. So for our PPE, mask pa rin and standard precaution. Again, droplet, next for contact, these are direct contact, fecal oral routes, no, or from contaminated specimens such as your Clostridium difficile or difficile, rotavirus, draining wounds, antibiotic-resistant infections, RSV pa rin, and HSV. So ito ang PPE is your gown and gloves. Ang minimum PPE, gown and gloves. Because again, makuha na ito siya from contact. So if mo touch ka sa patient or mo touch sa specimen, and if without using PPE, pwede ito siya makuha. Alright. And the last is your reverse or protective isolation. So when you say reverse isolation, you're protecting the patient from the outside. No? You're protecting the patient from outside ng mga harmful pathogens. So usually, as siya ginabuhat for immunocompromised and those that with burns, because in severely burned patients, their immune system is compromised. All right. So for the immunocompromised, immunosuppressed, all right, muna siya itong ginabuhat, reverse or protective isolation. And for PPE nato, tanan, gowns, gloves, and masks, and all must be sterile. All right. Because again, we want to make sure na wala na ihatag sa patient na kagaw or any pathogen. Because gamay lang na pathogen, all right, pwede na makamatay nila. Because again, they are immunocompromised or immunosuppressed. All right? And pagtatang nato or paghawa nato sa room, ato pong i-remove ang imuhang PPE. After leaving the room na pala. So pagawas na nimo. All right? Imuhang tamon ang PPE. All right? So gown, gloves, and mask. So take note of these, dears, na question from the boards na nigawas na ni. All right? So nalimot lang ko unsa but ipangutan na ang PPE na kailangan. All right? So take note of that. All right? So that's for transmission-based precautions. Take note also, dears, take note lang, contact precautions is also used for Cryptosporidium. Wala na po nabutang nila. Cryptosporidium species. Okay? Alright, contact precautions. Alright, so those are transmission-based precautions, mga isolation precautions. Alright, okay. That's for the biological hazards. Now we go now to disposal. Of course, for disposal of biological wastes, take note, all of your specimens must be disposed of in a biological container, except for urine. Ayan. So take note ha, ay mga question, Ana. Which of the following specimens can be disposed of in the sink? Ayan. So atong answer is urine. Which of the following specimens can be disposed of in the sink? Atong answer is urine. Take note of that. Because your urine can be disposed of in the sink, pwede na siyang sama sa atong sewage, okay? And pwede na siyang ma-disinfect there, okay? But again, it can be disposed of in the sink, urine. As long as the sink can be disinfected with 1:5 or 1:10 dilution of sodium hypochlorite. And disinfection should be performed daily. All right, take note of that. Gas na, diba? All right. Now again, your biohazard symbol, it should be fluorescent orange or orange red in color. Ayan, take note. So again, take note of the biohazard symbol. May mga questions on boards, dears. So far, atong boards, magod ko walay pictures. Pero na yung mga question about symbol. So how do they question it? Ilang gana describe ang symbol. So there was a question daw. This symbol has three circles, three interconnected circles or overlapping circles, three overlapping circles with one circle at the center. So sa mana siya, that is your biohazard symbol. So if malimot mo or maglibog mo, i-draw na lang sa test paper. Now there's three overlapping circles or interconnected na circles with one circle in the middle. So three interconnected circles, one circle in the middle. That is your biohazard symbol. So inanay lang mga question. Gina-describe ang symbols. Okay? Wala may picture, so gina-describe siya. Diba? Ganong level ang mga question na sa boards. No? Alright, so that's for the biological hazard. Okay, so again, disposal of biological waste. Ang question lang, which of the following specimens can be disposed of in the sink? The answer is urine. Urine. Okay? Alright, see. Now, of course, first year now, okay, take note of that, the DOH, Biological Waste Management color coding of the container or pwede sa bag. Okay, so again, black, non-infectious dry, green, non-infectious wet waste, meaning it's a kitchen, no? Yellow, of course, is infectious, anatomical, pathological waste. Yellow with black band, chemical waste, including those with heavy metals. Orange is your, of course, radioactive, and the red is for sharps and pressurized containers. Ito ko budwala na, may person na ninyo. I'm sure of that. Okay, alright, sige. So those are all for your biological hazards, no? So again, take note lang of the chain of infection, no? And the different mga chika nato dito. Alright, next you have the sharps hazards. Now for the sharps hazards, of course, in the laboratory, of course, we're very much prone to this, somewhat na sa work, because we have a lot of needles, no, syringes, no? So take note that your sharp objects should be disposed of in puncture-resistant, leak-proof containers, of course. And it should have a biohazard symbol, and it should never be overfilled. Okay, meaning, kani mo hang container dear, sana siya line kung asa na siya puto. So dapat dito lang yung puto ang imuha mga sharps. Dapat dili siya mo lapaw. And dapat ang imong mga syringes, dili siya kanang mo gawas na, no, sa imuhang container. Alright? Now, in your experience, if maka-ward pa mo, sana naman, basta hindi ay, no, maka-ward pa mo next step. In Soto, sa akong experience, every ward tray, katong tray na mong gamiton for warding, nabi na siya ay sharps container. Alright? Inani siya. Usually red na yung banyedo. Alright? Now, take note na if mapuno na ganin na siya, dears, okay, if mapuno na ni siya, how will you dispose it? Sige. How will you dispose this container if puno na? Saan man? Saan siya pag-dispose? Wala, sir, I don't know. How will you dispose? Alright, very good. Thank you, Earl. No? You dispose the whole container. Okay, do not, please lang, for the love of God. Do not remove the needles from the container and then ibutang siya larger na container. Kaya mo i-reuse. Hindi mo siya i-reuse. Na ako experience sana, dili ako. No? Ako ang co-intern sa Soto. Gikan siya sa, lahi na school. Start with letter B. Start with the letter B. Naka-record any. Di na ako i-mention ang ngalan, pero start with the letter B. What she did, yung kabuha, no? Na puno na siya. So, of course, before ka mag-ward, mag-prepare kasi ng materials kay para dili ka makulangan pag naka dito sa ward, kay dili pag dito sa laboratory. So, if na kay makulang na stuff, kanang kawat na kay oras, kung mabalik pa kag-laboratory para kuha to. So, before you go warding, you have to prepare your tray, no? Kung sa mga kailangan, okay pa ba niya akong syringe, no? Ako mga tubes, na pa ba, ako plaster, whatever. So, what happened is before siya nag-ward, katuyahang sharps container, puno na, no? Puno na yun, no? So, ayun gibuhat siyang kamaayo. Ayun gibuhat kay naidako dito na sharps container yun, na color red, no? Sa mga disposal waste dito sa first floor sa lab sa Soto. So, yan gibuhat ko, kaning container, iyang giyag-yag. Yan yung giyag-yag. What happened is na-prick siya. O, di ba? Na-prick siya. So, kaya mag-iyag-yag, no, sa yung kabuhan. So, di ba? That's very scary. Kay, imagine, this sharp container, wala kang kabalo kung asa tugi ka na needle. Because that's a lot. So, pila na ito ka-medtex na nagamit, pila na ka-patient iya ang gigamitan ani na sharp container. So, random na dyan kaayo ng needle na ni-prick niya. So, di ba? So, para di nato siya ma-follow, di kita maparehas niya gears, please make sure, remember, no? Remember yun. Mag-ward na mo, if na magani mo tayo mo ward, if not sa intern or mag-work na mo sa medtech. If mapuno na siyang sharps container, dispose everything. Okay? Mo siyang ilabay tanan. Okay? In your larger container for the sharps. Okay? Like, dako din na drum for sharps na inana. Okay? So, do not dispose. Di na siya reusable. Okay? Di mo na siya ilabay as whole. Okay? Alright. So, do not follow the intent from letter. Ay, wala akong naglagot sa school. Ayan ko mga okay, Ayan, okay, sige. So next is, of course, blood is the most frequently implicated infected body fluid in the laboratory, actually. It can transmit HIV, and of course, or hepatitis B, and of course, hepatitis C. So needle stick injuries, again, we are very much prone to that. Okay, so we have to be very careful. All right. Now, if again, accidentally prick ka, you have to notify your supervisor, or in this case, medtech on duty nimo. All right. If wala ang chief medtech supervisor, or medtech on duty. All right. Okay. Now, after exposure, of course, evaluate ka sa infection control office if you need ba post-exposure prophylaxis, and it should be initiated within 24 hours. All right. And OSHA requires employers, hospitals, that all your laboratory workers or those that are exposed to blood or other body fluids should have free immunization of hepatitis B. Take note of that. Next question, which of the following OSHA requires blah, 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 free immunization to laboratory workers or those exposed with blood? Kung sa ito na immunization, HBV, hepatitis B virus. Take note of that. All right? Kung say free na immunization dapat ihatag sa workers, hepatitis B. So ayan, I was an first-hand experience na yun. So ako mga students before, I think, nakachika na ko ani. So katong wala pa nakabalo, yes, na-freak ko. Before, when I was in Galliaris, sa first sem. So what happened ato I think nakachika na mag-go. Pero ito siya, na-freak ko, no? What happened is, 16-hour duty to siya, mga alas 12, alauna, nag-ward me. And then, patient was kanang buros siya, pero kanang mo discharge lang gani. So, kanya akong ikuha na tests niya for clearance na lang, para makagawa siya. So, the patient is really healthy looking, no? As in, healthy looking na siya. So, what happened is, of course, TTS to siya, kaya daghang tubes para pas-pas na. So, successful round draw. What happened is, pag tangtang na ako, of course, what I did was, ayan, recap the needle without using the fishing method. No? So, what I did is, ako siyang gigunitan good and nana. Alright? So, what happened is, kanina dito na finger, kanina siya, na-prick siya sa needle na nagamit, TTS. Alright? Nag-gloves ko ato, nag-gloves ko ato. So, sa akong mind, murag shocks, may kagwala. Murag shocks, Lord. Nakapil ko, murag bad list gamay, pero anak ko na shocks, Lord, may kagwala. Pero pagkatana ko sa gloves, ayan, pagkatana ko sa gloves, it's already bleeding. Nag-bleed na din siya. So what happened is, nagdiretso rin ko sa nearest nurse station, and then akong gipadugog yung siya intense. And then, nag-wash ko hands, safeguard dito ako to kung ano safeguard din. Okay? And then, of course, nagdodo ka ko ato, pagbalik ako sa lab, should I report ba to the medtech na akong kauban or dealing? So, nagdodo ko, no? So sa akong mind, kay of course, Mark, you should report what mamatay ka. So how would they know? So ni-report ko. So kamo dear sa God forbid yun that you experience the same ako. If ever man gani, if ever lang yun, if ever, God forbid, may tabo, make sure to report to your medical duty. Ayaw na siya pagduwa-duwa. Ayaw nagkahadlok if may extension ka or ma-IR. Ayaw na yun. Ayaw na siya kahadlok. Alright? Prioritize yourself. No? What happened? What if may tabo na ako? No? So, how will they know? Diba, ganun? So, at least aware sila. So, prioritize yourself. Ayaw nagkahadlok sa IR, sa inyong extension, if naman gani, or whatever. Prioritize yourself and your well-being. So, ito siya, ako siyang tingin na akong medtech, and then pag-augma dayon after the 16-hour duty, so go back ako din. So, parang tulog na kayo ba? Ito ko sa infection control office, and then di pa check. Pagbahin ako sa lab, di-check ako ang hepatitis B titer, okay naman, no? Okay naman akong hepatitis B titer. So, wala ako gihatagan o prophylaxis for HPV. Ang gihatag na ako is HIV na prophylaxis, which is zidovudine, I think. And later on, long story short, na nahibalaan na allergic ko to zidovudine, nahubal ako na so i-stop ko ang prophylaxis sa HIV. But thankfully, I'm still here din naman. So parang okay na to siya na patient. Okay. So be careful, dear sa. Actually, it's not recommended you to recap needles. Sa Soto, sa akong experience, when we go warding, what we do is magdala may forceps. Okay? And then after kuha on the blood, no? After kuha and all that, ang needle, among isulod dayon sa sharps container. Kaya kanang sharps container, dear, na siya small na hole kung asan mo pwedeng masulod ang needle. And what we do is, isulod ang needle, and then using the forceps, gunitan ang hub, and then i-twist na ang body para matangkan ang needle. Basta para wala jud kay any murag contact with the needle. Kay forceps yung gigamit. And that's very safe. And careful yung sa Soto because I'm aware that there's a lot yun of HIV patients sa Soto. And it's very scary if ma-break ka. So, gamit ko forceps. Wag yung po nag-fish out. Wag yung po nag-recap. Bahala na. Basta, after kuha, diretso dahil sa sharps, gamit ang forceps, hold the hub of the syringe, and then i-twist ang body sa syringe. And then, tangtang dayon ang imuhang needle, diretso na sa sharps container. Okay? So that's really safe. That's what we do in Soto. Na forceps. Okay? Alright. Because again, wala tayo katong mga safety, katong na ibang needles, magod, na safety mechanism gani na pangtabon. Wala may nato, kasi syringe man means. So, anay ETS, pero walay katong walay ka ng safety mechanism. So, it's best yun na diretso sa sharps container. Ayaw na pag-recap, no? If na kay forceps, diretso. That's what we do. Okay? So, para good safe. Alright? So, that's for sharps hazards. So, dami kong chika, no? Pasensya years. Sana naman you're still learning. Alright? Take note of that. Mga experiences good. Okay. Alright. Next, you have, again, the types of chemical hazards. So, we say chemical hazards, of course, for the different reagents, chemicals that we use. So, number one is corrosive. We say corrosive, these are materials that can cause destruction, no, or damage to your skin ba, or pwede ba sa inyong equipment. No? So if matuluan ka na chemical, pwedeng masamad ka, or pwedeng magubang equipment. Next, for reactive, these are reagents that will interact, no, or react with air that may lead to explosion ba, or violent reactions. For toxic, of course, this may harm the body once inhaled or ingested, such as mga poisons, carcinogens, or mutagens. Irritants, of course, this can cause allergy, no, mga irritating, no, magluha yung mata, no, magkatul, that's irritants. And environmental, these are hazards again that can cause harm in the environment. Okay, all right, that's for your chemical hazards. Now, specific chemical hazards lang, dears. This is from Lynn and Ringsrad in the book. Again, these are the different chemical hazards that we encounter and their possible results. Take note lang, ako lang i-mention, your sodium acide, which is a preservative in summer agents. It can cause, it's a carcinogen, all right? And when disposed of in the sewer, it may combine with iron salts and metallic salts that are explosive, all right? So, and other mga hazards, of course, you already know that. Acids and bases, they can cause severe symptoms and diseases at our body. So make sure you to be very careful, all right? Next, you have, of course, chemical spills and exposure. Of course, the best first aid, you already know that. If ma-in contact ka of chemical, whatever chemical it is, it's best to let the area be under large amounts of water, running water for about 15 minutes. At least, Japon at least 15 minutes. So 15 minutes and above. So let it run with water, no? large amounts, running water, no, and then seek medical attention. Of course, if you have a chemical here sa skin, do not attempt to neutralize it because it may cause harm. It may cause more harm than it may cause more harm. No, kay mag-neutralize ka. So what happens na ay reaction na may tabo sa imong skin, mas mo damage ang skin. So the best way is to flush the area with large amounts running water for at least 15 minutes. And in the event of a spill, matapon siya, you consult the SDS or your MSDS, Material Safety Data Sheet or safety data sheets, SDS. So again, your safety data sheets, muna siya example, this contains pertinent information about the chemical. No? So, unsay mga characteristics niya, unsay mga limits, mga potential and all that, mga first aid procedures po. So, it's very important. Pero ang wala na sa MSDS, take note here, is iyahang electrical hazard. Okay, take note of that. Kung say wala sa MSDS, ang electrical hazard. Alright, but the rest, daan na. Okay, that's for MSDS. Okay, alright. Now, for chemical spills, of course, may mga laboratories na ay chemical spill kit. And this kit contains a lot of materials na needed for the spills, no, such as absorbents, no, mga gloves, no, disposable containers, and all that. Now, for spills, again, if mayabo, samot na dako ang spill, you have to evacuate first the personnel. So, ipalayo sa sila sa spill, all right, to prevent further harm, no? Next, you use a sodium bicarbonate or sand mixture to neutralize the spill, and then afterwards, you then wash it. Imo siyang i-wash or imo siyang using gloves, of course, and PPE. Imo siyang i-pick up and then butang sa container and then dispose. All right, so that's for spills, no? Again, every laboratory must have a chemical spill kit. Yani you have to make sure na yung mga gloves, yung mga towels, and disposable containers or mga plastic bags. And then sulod sa spill kit are the different reagents such as your sodium bicarbonate, sand mixture for neutralization of the spill. All right, okay. Next, of course, chemical handling. Always add acid to water. Take note of that. So, ATW. Ato ang mnemonic. Lumalabas pa rin. ATW, ATW. Acid to water. So, or alphabetical. ATW. Acid to water. Meaning, ang water na ana sa container mismo. Ang acid mo ang ibutang sa water. Okay? And never the other way around. Because it may cause splashing that could lead to explosion if water is added to acid, meaning ang nasa container na kay acid. So, ang perfect or the best good method is acid to water. Ang water na ang nasa container, imo na lang i-add ang acid. Alright? Acid to water. ATW. Alright. Next, of course, never grasp a reagent bottle by the neck or top. Kaya wala kay, dili kayo nyo magunit ng karong, pwede siyang mabuak or mabuhian nimo. You grip it with the body. Alright. Now, if you work with carcinogens, of course, it requires special precautions. You need to perform it under a fume hood, rubber gloves, respirator, and cleaning contaminated glassware with a strong acid or organic solvent. So you have to protect yourself. All right. Chemical containers made of glass should be transported in rubber or plastic holders that will protect them from breakage. And wearing goggles, preparing reagents again under a fume hood is recommended. All right. So dapat fume hood yun, prepare kag reagents. Para katong mga toxic na mga vapors, mugawas na siya. Alright? Hindi mo siya ma-inhale or masulod sa laboratory. Alright. Next, for chemical storage, of course, your chemicals should be stored and explosion-proof mga refrigerators or mga cabinets. Alright? Your flammable materials should never be stored near acids because possible sila mag-react, no? Pwedeng mag-explode. Alright? Next, storage area should be cool enough, again, to prevent heat build-up, which can lead to explosion. And again, explosion-proof refrigerators. And take note of this, dear, chemicals should never be stored in alphabetical order. Why? Because if alphabetical order siya, possible na different components and chemicals, no? So possible na mag-react sila if alphabetical, no? So you have to arrange it by their nature, no? Kani acids, there's lang tanan. Flammable materials lang tanan na diri. Okay? Never alphabetical. Why? Because again, different chemical components may be stored next to each other. All right, and this could lead to reactions. All right. Okay. Ayan. Next, for chemical labeling, of course, for chemical labeling, the chemicals should be labeled with their hazard. Are they toxic? Are they carcinogenic? No. Are they teratogenic, explosive, etc. Now, of course, there's an NFPA, diamond Ako, gasgas na gasgas po yan. The NFPA diamond symbol, take note, should be in the container, all right, which again gives you an idea on the type of the different hazards na aniya. And of course, the chemical hygiene plan, which is a written program, contains the safety precautions in handling chemicals and all that. The chemical hygiene plan. All right. Now remember, take note. Of course, the best reagent yapon to the best reagent yapon to clean mga spills is your 1:10 sodium hypochlorite. And again, how do we prepare that? 1 part sodium hypochlorite, 9 parts water. Take note, 9 parts water, 1 part sodium hypochlorite. So mas daghan ang solvent, of course, the water, compared to your sodium hypochlorite. Okay. Now this sodium hypochlorite here, again, it's best for biological spills and random spills na to pwede na siyang gamitin. Now if large yung mga biological spills such as daghan kayong blood, no? Daghan kayong blood. Ay mo water sa una is mo absorb sa ka, yung mo sa siya ipa-absorb ng towel. So butan sa mo towel, alright? And then afterwards, butangan mo of sodium hypochlorite. And then contact time for about 10 minutes or even more. All right. And then afterwards, you dispose it in your infectious waste and then wash na po with sodium hypochlorite ang area for final disinfection. That's for mga large spills. All right. So again, best to absorb muna the spill with your towels or absorbent because imuhang sodium hypochlorite, it will be inactivated by large amounts of biological materials such as blood or mga proteins. All right, so it's best to absorb muna with the towel. All right, so that's for your 1:10 dilution of sodium hypochlorite. Now again, take note, your sodium hypochlorite dilutions stored in plastic bottles, they are effective for 1 month if protected from light after preparation. And your NFPA diamond symbol is made by NFPA on their law or something that is NFPA 704. Alright? NFPA 704, siya ang nag-create sa NFPA diamond symbol. Alright. Now we go na to the NFPA diamond symbol. Of course, ayan. So, ano yung mga mnemonics dyan? Alright? I-share na mo mnemonics. So, for yellow quadrant, no, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, you have SUV, SM. So, SUV, SM. So, musakay kag SUV, padulong sa SM. O, diba? So, SUV, SM. Alright? So, stable, unstable if heated. Violent chemical change, shock and heat may detonate and may detonate. SUV, SM. Yellow is again your reactivity or stability hazard. Blue is your health hazard. So, mnemonic, N shed. Alright? N, normal material. Kaning N ang pinakauna dear, so of course. N shed. N, normal material. Slightly hazardous, extreme danger, and finally deadly. Alright? Take note of that. Alright. And next, you have the white quadrant. You have the specific or special hazard. Of course, OXY, oxidizer. Acid, ALK, alkali. Or corrosive. W with a strike-through or nasay line. You have use, no water. And the radiation hazard. And lastly, the red quadrant, flammability or fire hazard. It's all about flash point. No? So 0 will not burn. 1 is flash point below 200. Ang 2 kay flash point, ang 1 is flash point above 200, 2 is flash point below 200, 3 below 100, and 4 below 70 degrees Fahrenheit. Take note, Fahrenheit siya dears, delete Celsius. Okay? Take note of that. Alright. Now, this is the diamond. How do we remember? As ang mga colors. Alright, sige. So, we first make a diamond. Discuss na yun. Diamond and then butang ka cross, di ba? Cross. So starting sa right, di ba? Yellow, di ba? You were born right. Okay? Ala. Wait lang, ako na lang siya i-title tarong. You were born right. Okay. Sorry. Ayan. So right, no? Starting ka sa right, you were born right. Okay? You were born right. So, yellow, white ang ilalong, blue ang nasa left, and right ang nasa taas. So, you were born right. Okay? You were born right. That's how we remember the colors. No? Alright. Now, take note lang, how do we remember the numbers? No? Natin mga mnemonics. M shed sa blue, SUV, SM sa yellow. Alright? Take note of that, dears. Because medyo lumalabas sa boards, mga question, number 1 in the yellow quadrant. Number 4 in the blue quadrant. Number 3 in the red quadrant. Or blue quadrant is, sa blue quadrant. Your red quadrant is, okay, so take note of that. 1 point na kayo here. Choosing a point, no? First the buzzer na agad-agad. Okay? Alright, sige. Next is your degree of hazards. So, kaning degree of hazards, rin niya siya, no? It's pertaining to a lot, kinsa na hazard, there's a kinsa na hazard, ihang degree, no? Hazard index, you have 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, Japon, sa mnemonic, no SMS excess. Take note of that. So, no SMS excess, di na ka mo text in mga X. Nako, sinasabi ko siya. Di na mo communicate yung X ha, no SMS excess. So, no or minimal hazard, 0. S is for slight, M is for moderate, another S is for serious, and then number 4 is extreme or severe hazard. So take note of that, no SMS excess. That's the degree of hazard. So it's pertaining to any hazard in sayang intensity, in sayang degree. All right? That's for the degree of hazard. No SMS excess. Take note talaga. Okay? No SMS excess. All right. Okay. Next, you have, again, the different symbols. Ayan, I don't have to ano na this. You're all familiar with this. Explosive, corrosive, okay, electrical hazard, of course, biohazard, radiation hazard. All right. Okay, still the same. Take note, there's kanisha is health hazard. Kanisha is, pwede siyang toxicity, pwede kong poison. Kanisha health, pwede siyang harmful or general danger. All right. Kanisha gas under pressure or compressed gas, no? So, again, as I mentioned, wala kay picture sa boards, pero what if yan i-describe? Such as skull, no? Skull with 2 crossbones, no? So, i-describe siya, skull with 2 crossbones, 2 ka bones na nag-cross. So, that's your poison or toxicity. Okay? So, basta i-describe siya. So, take note of the image lang. Take note of the picture. All right. Next, for radiation hazards, of course, radioactive hazards. In the clinical laboratory, usually, wala kayo kind of exposed of radioactive, no? Or radioactivity. Ang ato lang is ginagmay lang, no? Especially if matutag mga areas and irradiation. But take note lang that over time, accumulation ang effect sa radioactivity. Hindi siya one-time big time, no? It's accumulation, especially if ginagmay ra na amounts, alright? And what you have to remember lang yun, dears, is for pregnant women. Pregnant women exposed to radioactivity has a great effect sa fetus, no? Pwedeng ma-defected ang fetus, pwedeng mamatay po ng fetus, alright? So there is great, very great effect of radiation on pregnant women. All right, and take note, imuhang exposure to the laboratory, exposure of the laboratory worker to radiation should be maintained. Yung records for the length of employment last 30 years. So, because again, we want to make sure, or we want to look after the effects of radiation. Because again, radiation, it's long term, no? Ato lang tawon yung effect after pila ka years. That's why ato siyang i-maintain yung records for longer period of time. All right. Next, of course, electrical hazard. Of course, electrical hazards not operate equipment with wet hands. Of course, you already know that. Electrical equipment should have a 3-pronged plug. Take note, para mag-grounded imuhang equipment. And if an electric shock occurs, again, take note, you should turn off the source of electricity or turn off the circuit breaker and plug the equipment, or you may remove the source of electricity from the patient. Never, ever, ever touch the patient directly because ang current sa electricity mapunta nimo, all right? And the second person, ikaw mo receive sa greatest amount of electric current. So, mas intense ang imuhang effect, okay? So, again, the best way is to remove the source of electricity using a non-conductor, such as your wood, plastic ba, no? To remove the source of electricity from the patient. And of course, the patient mo siyang look after. If kailangan CPR, is CPR, all right? And of course, seek for medical attention, all right? Ayan, sige, that's for electrical hazards. Okay, all right. Now, next, your fire, of course, fire explosive hazards. Flammable chemicals, again, as mentioned, explosion-proof refrigerators, and compressed gas and cylinders should be located away from heat para ma-prevent sila na mo capsize or mubuto, all right? Persons with burning clothes should be wrapped in the fire blanket to smother the flames. Styrene, ethanol, methanol, and acetone, again, are flammable, and they should be stored in flammable liquid safety cabinet. Some of your reagents are pyrophoric, meaning we ignite sila spontaneously when in contact with the environment, such as your potassium metal. Fire extinguisher should be placed every 75 feet. Your suppression system alarms, kato mga kato mga sprinklers na to, smoke detectors, should be tested every 3 months. And your manual fire alarm boxes, kato imong i-press para mo activate ang sprinklers or imong alarm system, it should have a travel distance that is not exceeding 200 feet. So as in gikan gears, gikan is a road act. Okay, gikan is a road act na 5th edition. Okay, so take note of that. Ako nang i-appeal kay basin mo gawas. No, so again, fire extinguishers every 75 feet. 3 months nimo siya i-check dapat imo mga fire detection systems, mga sprinklers. And if imo alarm boxes, it should be near exit doors and the travel distance should not exceed 200 feet. Alright. And of course, the very good mga mnemonics, alam nyo na, when a fire is discovered, sa itong mnemonics, raise. Rescue, alarm, contain, extinguish, ang una, or evacuate. Alright? And of course, how to operate a fire extinguisher? Pass. Wala na siya, i-fill up rin ninyo dears. Pull, aim, squeeze, and sweep. Pull the pin, aim at the base of the fire, squeeze the handle, sweep the nozzle from side to side. Kay Ariana Grande. O, diba? Ganun. So, I'm sure memorizing the tips. My God. Okay, gas na. But anyway, take note of that. When a fire is discovered, what's an acronym? RACE. When operating a fire extinguisher, on say acronym, pass. Hold the pin, aim, squeeze the handle, sweep the nozzle from side to side. And of course, different types of fire and fire extinguishers. You have letter A is the normal material, wood, paper, clothing. All right. Letter B is flammable liquid, such as your grease, gasoline, paints, and oil. C is electrical hazard. D is for combustible metals, such as your lithium, magnesium, sodium. E is for detonation or arsenal, katong ilabayan yung kahog, pambuto, inana. And K is for kitchen. No? So how do we remember letter B? Basa. No? Letter B for basa, flammable liquids. C is for kuryente. Okay, kuryente. Ayan. And letter K is for kusina. Letter K is for kitchen, kusina. All right. Now take note, letter E, wala siya fire extinguisher. It's allowed to burn out. All right. And nearby materials are protected from the fire. So if a question is wala fire extinguisher, you have letter E, detonation, arsenal. And the letter D, it's fought by firefighters only. All right. So sana naman. Sana all pinaglalaban. Charot. Okay. Next, water. Again, take note. Ang water is for letter A. Dry chemicals is for A, B, C. Carbon dioxide and halon is for B and C. Muna siya point ani na sa ilalong years. All right. So dry chemicals, A, B, C. Carbon dioxide and halon, class B and C, the fire. All right. So again, take note. Letter A is for ordinary materials. B is for basa, flammable liquids. C is for kuryente, electrical. And letter D is for flammable metals, combustible metals such as your mercury, magnesium, no? E is for detonation, arsenal, fire, and K is for kusina, kitchen, fire, all right, or kitchen wastes, all right. And of course, mechanical hazards, this pertain to my equipment, no? Such as centrifuges, autoclaves, and homogenizers, all right. Centrifuges, of course, it should be loaded equally, all right? And you must never open it until mo stop siyang spin. You already know that, all right? Tongs or insulated gloves should be used to remove mga hot glassware because, of course, if kamutra, init siya. So, possible na mabuhian nimo, mabuak. All right. Glass pipette should be handled with extra care. And if mabuak, of course, dispose properly to the sharps container. Glassware inspection program should be in place to detect signs of wear or fatigue sa mga glassware. So detect if hapit na ba siya mabuak or hapit na ba siya maguba. Uy, hapit na siya mabuak. Charot. Okay. Next, of course, physical hazards. Take note of that. Avoid running. Watch for wet floors. Bend knees when lifting heavy objects. Keep long hair pulled back. Okay, of course, para dili sa gabal sa worker or pwede po mo catch on fire yung long hair. Avoid dangling jewelry. Maintain clean, organized area and wear closed-toe shoes, of course. More on physical hazards, no? More on physical protection, okay? And of course, the last hazard is your ergonomic. Your ergonomic hazard is actually a type of physical hazard, all right? So, i-ask na ako ni sa pre-test, no? So, if given mo sa two choices, ergonomic or physical, pero specific yun siya na description, such as talking about musculoskeletal system na mga effect, mga repetitive strains, and you answer ergonomic. Be specific, all right? Although ergonomic is a type of physical hazard, okay, if not specific na ergonomic, you answer ergonomic, all right? So again, ergonomic hazards, these are hazards that you are bringing up, no? to your musculoskeletal system or nervous system in response to long-term repetitive, ayan, sigbalik-balik, na twisting, bending, lifting, or assuming static postures, all right, for extended period of time, all right? In the laboratory personnel, unsa na mga possible na contribute to that? Repetitive pipetting, of course, yeah, repetitive pipetting, keyboard use or resting their arms or wrists on sharp objects or edges, which can lead to carpal tunnel syndrome, no, magsakit yung wrist, tendonitis, and tenosynovitis. All right, so it's more on musculoskeletal system. So magsakit ang wrists, no, magsakit ang likod, yes, back pain in your area, ganun, and other musculoskeletal or nervous system na mga symptoms. Because again, repetitive, no, sigbalik-balik na actions or strains on the muscles and mga joints. All right? So that's for the ergonomic hazard. All of us every day, we are exposed to ergonomic hazard, especially in the online class, no? Kaya maglingkod na ka whole day, so mo posture and all that. So, yeah. Okay, so that's for ergonomic hazard. Again, it's a type of physical hazard, but if ang question, similar to your pre-test, nakabutang dito na musculoskeletal good, no? It's repetitive strains and all that. Press the buzzer. You answer ergonomic. Okay? Do not answer physical. Be specific. Okay? Ergonomic hazard. But if wala ang ergonomic hazard na choice, ang closest ana is physical hazard. Okay? Alright. But if not ergonomic, answer ergonomic. Alright? Sige. Before proceed to dali ni siya. Okay, yung QA and microscope. Do you have any questions so far? Okay. Again, when a fire is discovered, kung sa to ang mnemonics na gamiton?
Race.
Okay. Race. What is the fourth component of your chain of infection? The fourth component of your chain of infection.
Sir.
Okay, the mode of transmission. IREMs, no? IREM. Okay, M. Mode of transmission. All right. What is, again, your electrical na mga fires is under what type of fire? Sa na class? Class?
Sir.
Class? Sa to?
C, sir.
Okay, C. C for kuryente. Okay. All right. Tapos, also, number 3 in the blue hazard. What's number 3 sa blue hazard? What's that mnemonic sa blue hazard? You have
Ancient.
Okay. So N, S, N is 0 pala, sorry. Do not be confused sa N, mag-start with 0. S, H, E. So letter E, ang number 3, and that is your extreme danger. Take note of that. So SUVSM is for yellow, no? N shed is for blue. Okay. Now take note of the mga colors. Kinsa tong yellow, kinsa tong blue, kinsa tong red, kinsa tong white. All right. Again, the best first aid for contact with chemical spills in your skin is to flush the areas with large amounts of water for pila ka minutes?
15, sir.
Okay, at least 15. So 15 and more. Okay? Yes. Very good. That's for your hazards. So I'm sure review lang to siya, pero medyo natagalan tayo, no? Okay, I was expecting na pas-pas lang pero ganyan mo kung chika, so pasensya. Alright, now for today na lang, mahuman na to, QA. Alright, dali rin siya mga definition of terms na. So of course, for QA, quality assurance, as we have mentioned, we have emphasized this, no? Your laboratory actually is a business, actually. And we have to make sure that all our products, in this case, mga tests na to, and results, are all of quality. Okay, we have to ensure that the laboratory results, laboratory tests that we perform are all of quality. All right, and how do we maintain this quality? It's through quality assurance or quality assessment. Okay, again, your quality assurance, when you talk about quality assurance, it's overall a good comprehensive set of policies, procedures, practices necessary to make the laboratory results reliable. All right, so quality control is inside QA. So ang QA siya na ang nag-encompass sa tanan. Ang QC is just laboratory procedures good. So it's specific good na procedures, laboratory procedures that will entail or ensure that your test method is working properly and the test's results will meet the diagnostic needs of the physician. So ang QC is under QA. All right. QA good ang overall encompassing na system. All right. Okay. Next, you have also total quality management, TQM. It's a team concept involving personnel at all levels working together to achieve a final outcome of customer satisfaction through implementation. So it's a team effort, not TQM, total quality management. And you also have CQI, continuous quality improvement. So improving patient outcomes by providing continual quality care in a constantly changing healthcare environment. So nasa pangalan, CQI, continuously improving, no, for patients and for making sure that your results give are really reliable. All right. Next, you also have what we call the PDCA, PDSA, and what's this in pretest. What is the meaning of PDCA? Plan, do, check, and act. And what is the meaning of PDSA? You have plan, do, study, and act. All right. So these are methods, yun, mga business methods, no, ideologies, or mga management systems, yun, or styles para maka-produce, no, or ma-improve yung business system. All right. And your PDCA, PDSA, these are mga for solving problems usually, no, within the laboratory or within the business, no. Another one is PDMI, plan, design, measure, assess, and improve. Next, you have the DMAIC, DMAIC, and DMADB. Wala ning DMADB years, paki-take note na lang. Your DMAIC is define, measure, analyze, improve, and control. And DMADB, define, measure, analyze, design, and verify. Kanis lang duha years, kanis lang duha na ideologies or mga methods, these are all under your Lean Six Sigma. All right. Now, your Lean Six Sigma is a methodology gapon. All right. And they aim to reduce waste. All right. They aim to reduce waste. And at the same time, they aim to produce very quality in mga services. So it's a methodology in business, no, and in management. Your Lean Six Sigma. All right. So it's a combination of Lean and Six Sigma. All right. Now, why am I emphasizing this? It's because nigawas ni siya sa imuha March 2021 na board exam. All right. The belts of Lean Six Sigma. Kaya siya ng mga belts, these are parang the different stages, no, of being a Lean Six Sigma na professional. All right. So these are the different belts or mga rows, mga stages. So take note kung sa itong gibuhat sa white, followed by yellow, green, black, master black belt, and champion. Ang champion ang pinakataas. So, it follows taekwondo, di ba? Pinay mga belts. Inanakot siya. No? So, you're starting with white, yellow, green, black, master black belt, and champion. So, nigaw sa boards, I think, ang green belt or ang black belt. So, gipangutana or butang iyahang role, and then unsa iyahang belt. Okay? So, take note of that. Nigawa siya sa March 2021. So, take note of that. No? So, Lean Six Sigma na mga belts. So, these belts, again, will correspond to different roles in the Lean Six Sigma methodology. All right, take note of that. So again, recall sa board exam and March 2021. All right, yeah. So this is your different belts. So as you can see, highest ang champion. So as you can see, siya na yun ang nag-assist sa tanang Lean Six Sigma na projects. They support necessary change. So mas siya high end. All right, siya na yun ang pinakataas na road. All right, that's the Lean Six Sigma na mga belts. And of course, QC, diagrams, different diagrams in assessing, no, or in solving your problems in the laboratory. You have the flow chart, picture of the process mapping out each individual step. Cause and effect, also as your fishbone and Ishikawa diagram. So, commercial fishbone to identify the problem, the cause of the problem, and the effects. No, you have the Pareto charts. It's used to identify problems. Yapon. It displays the major contributors of the problem. Run chart it tracks individual data points, time sequence siya. Control charts, of course, your QC control charts. It is statistically determined to provide the upper limits, the lower limits, and of course, if na ba ni out of control, no, and all of that. Scatter diagrams, of course, cause and effect correlation between two variables. Scattered and scatter ang mga periods or mga dots. All right, and your Gantt chart, which is it shows the task of the project, when each task must take place, and how long each task will take complete. So I think na-explain niyo siya maayos sa biostats, if I'm not mistaken. I remember na Gantt chart sa public health before. Kasi pulos at public health. But anyway, so yung mga Gantt chart, different diagrams yan. Yung ginapangutan na sa boards, no? Especially sa lab management. So, laban lang. Alright, ayan. So here's an example, flow chart, no? Mapping out, usually mga pictures siya. Sa mga buhaton, asa magsugod, asa mag-end, sa i-follow na procedure. Cause and effect, as you can see, mura siya fishbone, of course, mura siya fishbone, mura siya bukog sa isla, fishbone. So cause and the different effects, no? Ayan. And then you also have the Pareto chart. Okay, so mura siya bar graph yapon over time. Run chart, you're tracking the different data points, all right? Next, of course, the control chart. Take note lang, control chart na siya upper limit, lower limit, and then to take note kung kinsa itong mga out of control or in control. Scatter diagram, as you can see, scattered, all right, over a period of time. Yung siya i-check. And your Gantt chart, as you can see, Gantt. No, marag na yung mga bars. Kung kanus ara, like planning, kung sa na mags, yung research, kanus pa na. So marag it's setting up mga tasks, kung kanus siya mahitabo, kung kanus siya humanda pa. All right, so that's for the different diagrams. All right. Next, you also have your traditional thinking in terms of management and your TQM or total quality management thinking. Just take note, ang TQM is more advanced, more progressive na thinking. It's more us, no? Kita gyo, dili siyara, no? Kita. As you can see, error-free, us relationships, and all, proactive system. So it's the more advanced, the more progressive, the more ideal na thinking compared to traditional. So as you can see, ang traditional is more on traditional, no? Conventional thinking good, no? So more on traditions, management-based, no? Leader ang gina-follow ra, and that. But for TQM, it's more on us, kita good, no? So opposite ra sa TQM ang mga traditional thinking. So gina-ask mo siya sa boards, what is an example of traditional thinking? What is an example of TQM thinking? Or which of the following practices is under TQM thinking or traditional thinking? So take note of that. All right? Okay, ayan. Sige. So opposite lang yun siya, opposite. All right. Next, of course, the different pre-analytical, analytical, and post-analytical variables. Now, take note again, basta pre-analytical, these are variables that involve specimen collection, specimen preparation, all right? Or mga preparation of the test assay. So preparation na yun siya, no? Specimen preparation or mga test assay preparation, and also monitoring of specimen collection. So before pag-testing, pre-analytical. When you go to analytical, it's more involving the test procedures. Na problema sa control, na problema sa test assays, no? Laboratory staff competency, because again, laboratory staff, no, they're more on the processing. So analytical, ayan. Ang post-analytical, it's more on reporting of results, more on conveying, no, more on informing the results to the necessary people that needs to inform or that needs to know the results. And take note, turnaround time. Your turnaround time, according to Henry, Rodak, and Turgeon, it's under post-analytical variables. Baka lumabas, asa na component or asa na part, imuhang turnaround time. Is it pre-analytical, analytical, or post-analytical? It's post-analytical. According to three references na. Henry's, okay, your Rodak, and Turgeon. All right? Now, again, what is your TAT? Your turnaround time is defined as the amount of time required from the point at which the healthcare provider has requested the test to the point na madawat na balik sa imong healthcare provider ang result sa test. That is Strassinger na definition. But according to Brenzel, ayan, depende siya ang TAT, no? So for laboratories daw, ang TAT is from the receipt of the specimen, pagdawat sa specimen, up to the pag-release of results. That's for laboratory yan. For healthcare provider, magsugod ang TAT pag nag-request siya og test. Dayon mo end ang TAT kung madawat na niya ang results sa test. Okay? And for nursing personnel daw, it's more on mag-start ang TAT pag specimen collection until results are communicated. So, medyo same lang siya, no? But again, take note, dito mo follow sa Strassinger na definition. The time or turnaround time will start pag daan sa doctor, no? Sa test. And mo end siya pag mubalik na sa doctor ang results sa iyang test na i-request. Alright? So, that's for the turnaround time. And again, asa ni siya? Post-analytical variable. Take note. So that's from Rodak 4th edition. And again, quality assessment errors from Strassinger still the same. Medyo same na siya with pre-analytical. The same thought. Alright? So, pre-examination, examination, and post-examination. You don't have to really memorize, just analyze lang yun. So if given mo, which of the following are pre-examination variables? Which of the following are post-examination? Take note ng yun lang tawa. Okay? Basta generally, ang pre-examination is before the test procedures. Examination is during the test procedures. And post-examination is after, no? Releasing of results na. All right. And of course, ISO standards involve the laboratory. You have ISO 15189. The medical laboratories particular requirement for quality and competence, that is 2007. And ISO IEC 17025, general requirements for quality and competence of testing and calibration laboratories, 2005. So muna siya main duha ka ISO na involved ng laboratories. Alright? Very important, ISO 15189. Alright. And of course, QC of laboratory equipment. Take note, isa sa mga daily, of course, temperature checking of refrigerators and water baths. Weekly, kinsa to, disinfection of centrifuges. And you check the pH and purity meter of your water ginagamit for reagent preparation. Bi-weekly, every 2 weeks, no? All diluents should be checked for contamination. All right. Monthly is the speed of centrifuge. So ito gamiton, tachometer and stopwatch. Another one is your strobe light. Ayan. So I think the question ako na sa free test. Which of the following devices are used for calibration of the centrifuge? You have the tachometer, you have also the stopwatch, and lastly, strobe light. S-T-R-O-B-E, light. Strobe light. Ang speed is checked by tachometer and strobe light. Your timing is checked by your stopwatch. All right. And for 3 months, every 3 months or quarterly, the calibration of centrifuges. All right. So using again on your tachometer and all that. No. So balik na po ka every 3 months. Okay. All right. So here's a picture of your stroboscope, tachometer, or strobe light. So na light na mo gawas, and this light will detect the speed, no, of your centrifuge and ma-record siya din yung RPM. And this is another tachometer, handheld. Meron siyang ipaduol sa imong centrifuge. Uban na laser na mugawas ani, and the laser will detect the speed and then ma-detect siya diri sa imong tachometer. All right? So these are the instruments used for calibration of centrifuges. Again, tachometer, stopwatch, and strobe light. Ayan, strobe light or stroboscope tachometer. All right? Okay. And of course, this is from Branzel. Ayan, same magyapon. Mga performance checks every when. Ayan, so take note lang. Again, ako rin i-post theirs for sa inyong section. Okay. All right, sige. Then for microscope theirs, again, I will not develop up. Okay, just a reminder lang. Ako rin emphasize again kinsa tong initial. Ayan. Initial image or initial magnification, you have objectives. So ang secondary na image magnification, it's the eyepieces. So siya ng secondary. Pero initial image formation and magnification, kinsa to? Objectives. Take note of that. Alright? Igawas na siya sa boards and sa inyong pre-test board. And another, kinsa to mo regulate sa brightness, alright? Needed to visualize the specimen, you have the rheostat. Alright? Rheostat or the light control now. Alright? Take note of that. Okay. Now take note kinsa to mga lens system of the microscope, oculars, objectives, and of course in fine adjustment knobs. Illumination system is your light source, condenser, field and iris diaphragms. When you say parafocal, set of lenses with corresponding focal points in the same plane. So you have focal points in the same plane. So if ma-rotate mo ang nose piece, the magnification will remain the same, no? Or minimal adjustment lang necessary. So that's the point of parafocal. Ang parcentric, ability to center the cell in question, and pag-rotate mo to another nose piece or another objective, naragapon sa center imong cell. That's parcentric. Okay? Parafocal points are in the same plane. Ang parcentric, the cell is in the center even if pag-move mo another objective. Alright? Okay. And different types of immersion oil gears, you can definitely sa Roda. Okay? You have type A, very low viscosity, used in fluorescence and dark field. Type B, this is what we use, high viscosity, used in standard microscopy and bright field. And type C, very high viscosity. This is used in inclined microscopes and long focus objective lenses and wide condenser gaps. And if the oil bubbles down when using the oil immersion objective, you sweep the objective and you move from right to left to eliminate the bubble. All right. So type A, type B, type C, the different types of immersion oil. Type B atong ginagamit. All right. High viscosity and ginagamit siya routinely for bright field and standard clinical microscopy. Last na lang, the care of microscope. Again, when not in use, always cover to protect it from dust. If dust is present, you use a camel hair brush or your air syringe. All right. And if wala, lint-free cloth. Okay. And do not use laboratory wipes or facial tissue to clean the lenses because this may scratch the lens. No? Pero maguba ang lens. All right. So kung sa ito pwedeng gamitin pag-wipe sa mga dust, lint-free cloth, camel hair brush, and air syringe. Of course, avoid placing fingers on the lens surface. Kaya fingerprints, pwede siyang maka-affect sa resolution and contrast of the image. And of course, For solvent, do not use xylene. All right, it's a poor cleaning agent, and it has a carcinogenic component, benzene. Lens cleaner or 70% alcohol may be used. All right, sparingly to clean the objective lenses. So if I question which of the following can be used to clean your microscope, ang answer natin is lens cleaner. Lens cleaner yun na yun. All right, if wala, 70% alcohol. All right. Now, of course, before using, you have to wipe first residual oil because the residual oil can lose contrast, maglisod kag lantaw. Do not use water, again, to clean your lenses. You use a microfiber cloth. And of course, when holding the microscope, it should be near you. One hand supporting the base and another holding the arm. You already know that. All right? Okay. And that's all for today, dears. Yes, for tomorrow, we'll continue now with renal function. All right. So before we end, any questions so far, dears?